Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first Kevin Davis Insurance webinar of 2021. I'm Marketing Manager and host, Sherry Branson. I did want to mention that I put recordings of all of our webinars on our website, which is kdisonline.com, where you can listen to today's webinar and all of our past webinars going back a decade or so. I do want to mention that I also have flyers, marketing flyers, and product videos on the website as well. And the website again is kdisonline.com. If you have any questions during today's webinar, feel free to type your questions into the questions box, which is on the screen. You can see in the toolbar, there's a questions tab. You click on that, type your question in, and if we have time at the end of today's session, we'll answer your questions. I'm very excited to kick off the new year with this webinar and a monthly webinar every month for the rest of 2021. And I'm now joined by Kevin Davis of Kevin Davis Insurance. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Sherry, how you doing there?
Doing good, doing good. Kevin, it's 2021. We made it.
I tell you, it's unbelievable that that whole 2020 thing is all over. And guess what we're doing today? We're reinventing it, right? We're gonna tell everybody about how bad it was.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna relive it all over again.
Relive it all over again. Yes. I hope nobody get up mad at us, but these are things we got to cover, I guess, right, Sherry?
Yeah, exactly. We just have to vent and get it out of our system and talk about how it's affecting us in 2021, and then we promise we'll move on. We'll move on to 2021.
Yes. Oh, well, except for next month, we'll talk about cyber from 2020.
That's true. One more, yeah.
There's about umbrella for 2020, so I think for a while we got to talk about this kind of stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. Because it was quite a year. I mean, a year like no other year, I think, in history, probably. There was so much going on. And, what we're going to talk about today is, the trends that we saw in 2020, Kevin. And there were a lot of trends. I mean, there were, more trends than we've ever seen before, probably in our lives, and how that's impacting D&O insurance and the community association industry.
Yeah, in fact, it's kind of interesting because I've thought about it, and this is why. This is why D&O and insurance is heading towards where it's going. And for all the insurance agents listening to this is information you need for your clients, because your client's going to ask you, why are rates increasing? Why is exclusions on the policy? Why these are things happening? And what we did was develop 5 trends that tell you why this is going on. So that's our goal today. That's what we hope to accomplish today.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yep, we'll be providing lots of great information today. And as I mentioned, I record all the webinars, and today's recording will be on our website, kdisonline.com, so you can listen to it again today, or listen to it at any point actually on the website if you missed something and you want to hear it again. And Kevin, now trend number 1 that we're going to talk about is the increase in exposure for people serving on a community association board. So what do you see happening there?
Okay, this is what's happening now. This is actually a fundamental change for individuals who serve on a community association board of directors, like over the past several years. It has been, their responsibility become more complicated than it has, and this complication has led to an increase in liability, growth in the number of claims against these board of directors, and these jury verdicts we're seeing are getting larger and larger and larger.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it's really changed a lot over the past few years, and especially in 2020, right, Kevin? I mean, whether we had the pandemic, nobody saw COVID coming, natural disasters, there were a lot of those, with the economy taking a hit, and then we had a lot of civil unrest as well. I mean, all these issues are affecting community associations by creating challenges for the association, the board, property managers, etc.
And the bigger issue is the Board's Authority Act. That's what we're really talking about there, because historically, when we talk about Board of Directors authority, we're talking about budgeting, rule enforcement, and maintenance. Now, because of the things you just mentioned, COVID, natural disasters, and economic and civil unrest, they have to really start worrying about the health, safety, and welfare of the communities, in which was never part of the governing documents and never part of the things that they were involved in before.
Mm-hmm. A lot of new topics, a lot of new areas, and they're unsure about what to do. I mean, even if they have the authority, they often feel that the rules of people that live in an association feel the rules are unreasonable, they should not be enforced. And what's new is they now are, they might feel, well, why do I have to wear my mask to the gym? Why do I have to wear a mask, to a common area, that kind of a thing. They feel insulted by that, and they feel it's unreasonable.
And that's the key thing, because with COVID, they really introduced this whole new thing that's going on right now. It caused many concerns for these community associations out there. And I believe it created a historic increase in responsibility to the board of directors that they never had before, and didn't have the knowledge or experience to even know what to do with it. Let me give you an example. And this is the one that everybody listening right now can Google this name. Okay, it's called the Palmetto Place Condominium Association, where it was said that the board of directors deactivated the key fob. The little key fob you swipe to get in and out of there, for two homeowners who said they tested COVID-19 positive. They tested positive, so the board of directors just deactivated it. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the condo association, without the authority to do so, used the deactivation as a way to keep that husband and wife in their unit for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. So basically,
and they told them, one more thing, Sherry. They told them that if they were left it, they would call the police if they tried to attempt to leave the building.
Wow, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible that an association would think they can do that.
Yeah. And now they're suing this Palmetto Place for false imprisonment, invasion of privacy, negligence, violation of federal law, all kind of stuff. The suit says that the association set questionable and potentially illegal rules and lacked the authority to enforce those rules.
Incredible. That's incredible. I mean, I would call that definitely an overreaction. Wouldn't you? I mean, that's just incredible.
And that's the point, is that what do you do? And this is right now, it is such a major problem for these community associations out there, because you're looking at this situation where we're in COVID-19 restrictions, and you have to make some decisions, but where does your authority come from? Because it's not the old days. We have to worry about budgeting and rules enforcement. Now you have to worry about the health, safety, and welfare of the associations.
Absolutely. In the association, they're just trying to do, like you said, they're trying to act in the best interest of the association, and they believe when it's right, we should just have to do this because we're doing what we think is right. And but many times they, a lot of homeowners and people that live in the association haven't read the documents, and there's just so many issues that the board members are dealing with now. They may make the wrong decision and not even realize it.
Yeah, because again, the bottom line is that the things have changed. The pendulum has shifted from, all I need to do is worry about the budget, maintenance, and rules enforcement, to now have to worry about pandemic, have to worry about, natural fires and floods and hurricanes, all these things. And do you have the authority to do that or not? And where your authority comes from?
Right, exactly. And when you have people living in your association who are COVID positive, what do you do then? I mean, that's a major issue. Absolutely. And now trend number 2, Kevin, that we're going to talk about today is you're seeing an increase in discrimination and harassment claims. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Okay. I believe right now, because you have the community associations are more diverse when you talk about ethnicity, race, religion, age, socioeconomic status, and because of this, they're dealing with these issues they never had to deal with before. Now, the primary issue that I'm really concerned about today is these neighbor versus neighbor disputes, where the condominium association has to take action, and one of these actions right now we're talking about that we're seeing a lot of is the area of bullying. Okay, yes, but we're back in high school again there, Sherry.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, neighbor versus neighbor disputes are unfortunately very common, and just like in high school, exactly.
And the difference now is that under the new HUD rule, which is Title 24, 100.7, there's liability for discrimination and housing practices, and it covers bullying. It is now a form of housing discrimination. And I tell you right now, it's creating a serious problem for board of directors of community associations. And bullies sometimes be a board member who refuses to listen to other board members, but most often it is the people who live there, okay, who has a personal interest or personal issue with other homeowners, which brings about, and then they bring the association conflict. That, Sherry, is that neighbor versus neighbor stuff we're talking about.
And then, Kevin, this puts the board members kind of in an awkward position where they may not want to get involved in between a dispute between two neighbors, but that creates an issue right there, right? If they just let it go and they don't do anything about it.
Exactly. You try to think it's a private matter between the two of them. And most times it can be, but when it's not, that creates that big problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, if they don't get along, I mean, you do have to do something about it. The board members aren't sure how to deal with it. They're afraid. But since it's now a violation of law, they do have to do something about it.
And what they're worried about is that sometimes this bad behavior will stop on its own, right? And get doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
And failure to properly address these issues head on could lead to serious lawsuits involving libel, slander, discrimination, and harassment.
Okay, so these are big issues, and they could be very expensive issues down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Now,
there was another case that you've heard of as well, Kevin, right?
exactly. This is a new case, the FHA case against an assisted living community who took this incredible treat this one individual really bad. She lived in snuff for a number of years, and they went after the basis of sexual orientation. Okay, and not only the management just decide to not to do anything about it, but they kind of retaliate against her by ostracizing her and saying that, well, this is the only time you can use the facilities. And also two people who lived in it, again, this is a senior adult living, this is a senior assisted living community. The person would actually physically do damage to her. I mean, either hit the person with a cane and things like that. Again, this is the kind of things that we see now in a situation like that. But one of the more famous cases, and this is one I always go through all the time, and we talk about age discrimination case, and the EEOC versus Watergate at Landmark. This is like one of those target situation where it's age discrimination case, where the condominium was reorganizing some of the health, like I think the racquetball court or the tennis court, and they looked at the person that was running it, managing it, and he was 63 years old. Okay, they started interviewing other people to say, okay, we want to go in a different direction. Well, the person sued, and then when they interviewed the people there at the board, they said, we wanted a younger person. We just wanted somebody who was younger and looked better. And again, these are things we're seeing now, and they're historic, but we continue to see these things over and over again. And now with this harassment of issue involved in it, it just makes things a lot more worse.
Absolutely. And board members are not human resources professionals when they're deciding to fire a security guard, or they don't want to get involved between disputes between neighbors. And they really should talk to their counsel, before to get some legal advice about what's the best thing to do rather than just firing somebody or not getting involved.
And I tell you, one of the things we had major problems with over the past 6 months, is the MAGA hat people. When they go and have these hats on, but they go to their board meetings and sit in a board meeting with their hat on. And again, the board of directors told that person they had to leave, or take the hat off, because this is a board of directors. You have freedom of expression wherever you go outside, but in the board meeting, it is not allowed. So again, he filed a complaint, which we end up, we had taken a look at. We see these things, and you had the same thing with the Black Lives Matter flags that were planted out there for a number of time. You have people who are upset about these situations and want to do something and want the board to do something about it. And that's when we're talking about, the increase in the board's responsibility. It's the board's responsibility. They go to them and say, board, you need to do something about it.
Their jobs are much more complicated now. So it makes total sense to talk to their legal counsel as much as possible, because there's so many different decisions that they have to make.
Yeah, that's it.
And trend number 3, Kevin, which this is, a lot of people are talking about this trend. We've touched upon it a little bit in 2020, was social inflation. So what exactly, can you define social inflation for everybody joining us today?
Social inflation is used by insurers out there to describe the rising cost of insurance claims caused by social and economic trends, resulting in more litigation, larger jury awards, and something called these nuclear verdicts that are out there.
Nuclear verdicts. So that sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, that's right. And when you talk about, social inflation, these nuclear verdicts, it comes from, you see these rapidly growing injuries, okay, and larger jury awards. That creates a major problem for insurers, because they can't predict these things anymore, because these awards are based on. I found this on. I'm trying to say your name, my
Phone's talking.
that's funny. Okay, so we talk about social inflation. What's happening here? That you're seeing these large awards for damages, okay, which are called the nuclear verdicts, okay, where we used to see these, we never saw $100 million awards, and now we're actually seeing, $1 billion awards. It's something new out there, and they call them nuclear verdicts out there, and it's based on social issues, and more so than anything else, and it's just a little bit different than they have been in the past.
Much bigger, much bigger. Yeah, I know, like at one time, Kevin, settlements exceeding 100 million were unheard of, but that's not the case anymore. It's very common for things to be over 100 million.
I tell you, I think I saw about $12 billion claims over the past couple of years, 12 of them. And the most famous one's Monsanto, the weed killer. It wasn't that, I bet you most community associations that are out there have used Monsanto weed killer at one point in time. And that was like, billions of dollars in losses, right? I think $8 billion last I heard. I think Johnson had a few of these billion-dollar losses. And what happens though is that social inflation has led to these insurance costs and really will create a major problem for insurance in the future. All liability. We're talking about D&O, umbrella, auto, environmental. And as a result of social inflation, you'll probably see changes in the policy, either reduced premiums, more exclusion might be added, rise in premiums, coverage might be reduced. Social inflation right now is a critical problem for insurers across the country, and no, everywhere in the world, because it's
So it's causing rates to rise and limits being reduced and premiums and rates going up and exclusions being added. So all across the board, it's affecting everything. And now let's talk a little bit about what's causing social inflation. Let's dig into that a little bit.
Sure. Social inflation is now a problem because these things are created by social issues, we said. And what happened, you have social media out there and these various news organizations out there are stating that some of these corporations are bad people and they should be punished. And then when these jurors get in there, they feel that these companies have to make them pay. And so it used to be where we didn't look at it that way in the past. We do today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of generational shifts with millennials on juries, and they're more concerned with privacy, with pay disparity, climate change, et cetera, and other social and environmental issues. So that's kind of changing the makeup of juries. And I think that's also
and that's it. Anytime you bring those things up to millennial, it's always going to trigger comes out, okay, large jury verdict, large jury verdict, large jury verdicts. Yeah. And then the concept of money has changed. It's become more personalized in that, we are the ones, and when we see somebody on trial like that, we put ourselves in their shoes, and we think that that person should be awarded a significant amount of money, And also you have the attorneys out there who focus on that heartlessness of the corporation to scare the juries into larger verdicts also.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of sympathy for the person that is injured or has been damaged by a product, et cetera. And now everybody who's with us today, Kevin, is in the community association industry. So let's talk a little bit about community associations and social inflation claim trends affecting our customers.
Yeah, this is important because, again, we had 3 nuclear verdicts out there, okay? We have a $30 million one, and this is when 3 children fell through an ice in an HOA lake. One of the children walking, he had lake freezes over, and one of the children, her name was Christopher, started walking away and fell through the ice. The 2 brothers came in and tried to save him. Well, what happened is that Andrew, one of the children drowned, and the other one had a head injury, really a traumatic head injury. But the main one who fell through survived, and it ended up being $30 million. And one of the problems is that there was no signage around the pool. I mean, around the lake, no signage at all. They could have had a $70 sign, that said, caution or anything like that, and it probably would have saved their lives. Or it said a pulley system also should have been there, but it wasn't. So you had a $30 million lawsuit awarded against a community association HOA.
Wow, that's a huge lawsuit. That's a
Yep.
huge.
Another one is he had a $12 million from the estate against Eagle Nest Condominium Association due to the failure to upkeep the association, where an individual bullet went to a stray bullet came in and killed the father, and his children were sitting there and just watching him, and it's a stray bullet. And what happened is they thought it was a drug deal going bad in the association, but the judge and the jury just determined that the association should have done a better job and should have looked out for people who lived there or who didn't live there, and they awarded $12 million. Again, these are
Wow.
those jury verdicts we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the third one is a $10 million where a 40-foot tree fell on an individual, woman, okay, who was just pulling into the carport, okay, and she was in the car and she died. Now, the problem is that this is the second tree to fall on that same carport within the in 3 years. So
Wow. So
yeah.
they knew that there was a problem with the trees, and obviously there was some kind of maintenance issue there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if these associations don't have enough insurance to cover these huge claims, what would happen? What could happen? They could go bankrupt.
Exactly. Most of them don't. And I don't, most of these associations, I think one of them had a $6 million umbrella policy. I think the 30 million one had a $6 million policy there. So, yeah.
How are they going to pay it? I mean, it's
umbrella talk in a couple of months. We'll talk about these three things a little more in detail. Another area of concern for us when it comes to these nuclear verdicts is social media. And I mentioned earlier how social media can do certain things that creates a problem. We had a situation in community association where a San Francisco jury awarded $2 million damages to a former employee of the HOA because it permitted the property manager to target one of the employees. I think it was a person who ran the gym or the tennis courts or something. Where on Facebook, okay, Facebook complained that the person who was there was actually a pedophile and a drunk.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's defamation for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And that's why, the social media pages, while they do a lot of good because people get to share lots of positive information and good information and, details about school or, a local dry cleaners, for example, but then this can happen too, where people it gets ugly.
And that's the problem is that social people put things on Facebook, they don't realize that somewhere along the line it can come back to haunt them,
Right. Yeah, social media, there's good and bad, pros and cons to it for sure.
But the reality is when we talk about social inflation here, the big problem is this: these owners who live in these community associations believe that community associations are big corporations. So bringing a lawsuit can mean that, guess what, there are big damages, there are nuclear verdicts that can be made against them. So owners who are quick to want to be able to take these people to court and sue them. But the reality situation is this: unless you've been seriously injured, either physically or suffered some kind of really major financial loss, you'd be lucky to get your own attorney's fees and legal expenses, much less anything for pain and suffering or emotional losses or damages or anything like that. There are just not enough big dollar cases in community associations, which means if you are going to sue, you have to be aware that, nothing may not come out of it. But again, people constantly try and do things because they really want access to the nuclear verdicts.
Well, they see everything on the news. They see them in the headlines and they think, oh, okay, I'll go for 10 million. Okay, great. And now we're going to talk about trend number 4, which is the rules enforcement challenges. And, as we talked about a little bit earlier, Kevin, there's so many new rules that people are following: the masks, the social distancing, etc., common areas being closed. I mean, there's just so much going on right now. So much.
And what's happening is that because all that stuff so much stuff is going on, it has led to an increase in enforcement challenges to the board based upon the owner's belief that the rules are unfair, discriminatory, unreasonable, and thereby unenforceable. That's what it all boils down to. They actually believe that is the way it is.
Yes, and then there's another case I know with COVID-19 where the association attempted
Palmetto. Yes, Palmetto. This is case number 2. Palmetto is, back. They're back again. Okay, Palmetto attempted to find another homeowner. Okay, this is again, they lock people up in their place, earlier, and here's another claim that came in where they charged a $5,100 mask violation. Okay, wasn't wearing a mask. Okay, wasn't wearing a mask. The plaintiff said the condo board never approved its own mask or facial covering order. So the board is enforcing a rule that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If they don't have the rule, how can you enforce it? It makes no sense.
It had 8 months, okay, to enact a rule, a rule, enforcing or requiring facial covering.
Right.
They had really vote on the rule, but it just didn't do it.
Right. Right. Yeah, and they were having meetings throughout the whole pandemic, Zoom meetings, virtual meetings, etc. So it very easily could have been passed.
Yeah. So again, rules enforcement right now are one of the bigger problems you will see, and we will always see. I mean, you had a situation where in your community about the wrought iron fence. Remember, you was telling me about that one.
Yes, yes. We had a situation here where one of the rules in our CC&Rs is if you're going to put a fence up, it has to be wrought iron. I think that's kind of a new trend now, so that it's not so closed in, with the wooden fence or the white solid fences. So one of my neighbors did put up a wooden fence, and then they were told they had to take it down because it wasn't wrought iron. It didn't fit the rules. And I guess they never read the bylaws, which a lot of people don't, to be honest, most people don't.
But you do, right?
Oh yeah, I read every word. I have them memorized. Well, I know about the fence, that's for sure.
That wasn't you, was it, the fence?
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. No.
Okay. But the point of Sherry is that because of all the things, I mean, you think about people who live in the community associations today because of COVID. I mean, we're trapped in these places. We're trapped in here, and we have to make decisions. And so what happens is we're upset because they're closing the pool, they're doing all these different things, and the next topic is COVID. But because of that, we are constantly the rules are being challenged, and enforcement is a major issue right now. It is one of the major issues. It's hard to enforce the rules, the documents, anything, because people are not happy with them. And they believe they have the right. They believe they have the right to do something. They want to be able to do it, regardless of what the documents say or state law or anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Kevin. And I did want to mention that if anybody has any questions about what we went over today, feel free to type your questions into the questions box and we will answer your questions. Or if you think of a question later on, feel free to email me your question to sbranson@kdins.com. That's sbranson@kdins.com. And if you'd like a copy of today's PowerPoint presentation, please send me an email to sbranson@kdins.com. Okay, let's see if any questions have come in. Oh, we do have a question that's come in. Let's see. We have a question from Wayne H. Wayne would like to know, I understand that this is being recorded. Would it be possible to share the webinar with our clients? That's a great question, Wayne. Yes, that's fine.
Yes.
Yes, you can share it with your clients, no problem at all. Yep. So I'll be sending.
Let's move on to number 5. Okay, Sherry, you want to move on to number 5?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you had. Okay.
Nope. Trade number 5. All right. This is our favorite topic here, COVID. Now, if you want to get a good idea what a claim looks like from COVID, here it is. Just Google, you get a chance, and again, you can download the slides and everything like that, and Google this or just click on this, and you learn about what happens in COVID and how complicated COVID can make. Because you have these situations, you talk about closing the gym, pool, common areas, and things like that. Then you have the same problem when you open the gym, clubhouse, or everything like that. Now, here's the issue. Closing the gym, you have less liability than opening the gym. Saying no to somebody they can't use it is better for you than saying yes. Because you say yes, you are now opening up yourself to additional exposure if somebody catches COVID in there. So closing the gym, you will be sued. They will sue you and say that guess what, you have the right to close it, it's unconstitutional, the governor said it's okay, the mayor said it's okay, the township said it's okay. Keep it closed until you feel it makes sense. When you reopen it, you got to be careful. You got to make sure you do the things you have to do, the right things to make sure you're not sued. Closing the common area while still charging a monthly assessment. Big deal, because people think because I can't use the gym or the pool anymore, I'm not paying. I'm not going to pay. That becomes a problem. Satisfactory operating and maintenance of the association facilities, claims against owners that typically allocated towards amenities. Now, here's the next one: mandated COVID tests or vaccines to use facilities. That's going to be a big problem that we're concerned about in the future. When the community association said you can't use the pool unless you either A, prove you've taken a test, or B, you've taken a vaccine. I don't know where the authority comes from for them to do that or not, but we're quite sure that they're going to do it. Another thing we're concerned about is what happens when these community associations, the large ones, wants to invite people in, invite healthcare professionals in to vaccinate the whole association. There's a lot of exposure mandating COVID tests or vaccinations, and it's a big problem that we're concerned about from a liability point of view. Just like banning essential guests. I'm glad I'm banning essential guests because that's what the Winston Tower thing is all about. They ban essential guests, vendors, renters, without really the proper authority. But the big one right here is that last one is not reporting a claim in a timely manner. This is critical because we're talking about D&O insurance. D&O insurance is a claims-made policy where the claim can be made and reported during the policy period. So right now, if you are aware, if you're a board of directors and you're aware of any of these things right here, you may be aware of a claim and you may need to report it to the carrier. If you don't report it, then you're talking about potential losses or potential claims in the future.
Mm-hmm. And in the claims webinar that I did last year, Rachel from Travelers recommends reporting anything that you think is a claim. Even if you're in doubt about it, it's important to just report it anyway, even if it doesn't turn into a claim. Just report it as soon as possible when you have that complaint.
Okay, all right, good. So, all right, yeah, next we got the risk management. We'll leave you some risk management tools here to really help you out in terms really to and we're going to end this on a high note. We're going to end this on a high note because we want to make sure that, you guys really understand what you need to do. And again, I think it's a great idea. If you can share this webinar with your clients, it's going to make a big difference for them because these are really important things to know. So when we talk about risk management, okay, we're talking about number one, treat it as a business, okay? You got to treat it as a business. Historically, if you were board of directors, what do we do, right? It's a book club or a movie club, or you talk about, what's coming on and what you watch on Netflix. No, if you have $1 million, if you have a $100,000 home and there are 100 units there, you have a $10 million corporation that you need to take care of. You need to make sure. Have a reserve study, updated reserve study. Make sure you do have a reserve study. Have an emergency plan. Emergency plan is critical so that when we see things like COVID coming up or natural disasters, make sure you do that. Protect the association from any COVID-19 related plans. Document. That's one of your favorite ones, right? Just sharing document.
That's right. That's what Travelers recommends. Document everything, complaints, issues, concerns, anything that comes up that comes into your office, into a property manager's office or a board member's office. Recommend they document everything so that when, emails, phone calls, etc.
The next one is, and this is important, enforce the rules and regulations uniformly. The big problem you have when we talk about, problems with enforcing the rules or rules challenging because they don't enforce them uniformly. They enforce the people who they don't like and the people they do like, they let them get away with it. They towed a person's car away who's parking visitors they don't like, where the person they do like, he parks in visitors, they have no problem with it. So enforce uniformly, it is. And the most important is have a comprehensive D&O policy. We will probably have a nice comprehensive D&O policy webinar coming up sometime in the future, but you have to have them because everything we talked about, impacts your D&O policy one way or the other. These are not you have a couple of liability claims. We talk about some of the, we're talking about liability in general. This is liability in general, and you got to make sure you have comprehensive liability coverage, umbrella, D&O, and general liability. So I think we did enough for today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that was a lot. We squeezed in a lot, and I thought you were ending early, so my apologies for jumping in and doing the Q&A there. But yeah, we covered a lot of good information, and that was a great question, Wayne Howell. Thank you very much. If anybody would like to share the recording with your clients, feel free to share away. I'll send you the link to it. We have a YouTube channel, by the way. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. We put all of our webinars on our YouTube channel, and I put them on our website, which is kdisonline.com. So you can listen to the webinars there, or you can listen on our YouTube channel. And we covered a lot of great information. If you think of any questions later, feel free to send an email to sbranson@kdins.com. Happy to answer your questions. And if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, I can email you that as well. And yeah, thanks, Kevin. It was a great webinar.
All right, that was really good. Thanks.
Excellent information. And
we'll see you next month. Next month, we'll talk about cyber. 2020. We can't get out of 2020.
We're going to talk about how 2020 is affecting cyber in 2021. And that's a big area with a lot of people working remotely and working from home. So that's going to be a very timely topic. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kevin. And we'll see everybody next month. Have a great afternoon.
Take care.
Take care.